Hi everyone, good morning from London. Welcome to this webinar on effective teaching methods, jointly hosted by CIB and the Project Hub. I am Sina Moradi, CIB Program Director and lecturer in project management at the Bartlett School of Sustainable Construction. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar. We have three speakers, Dr. Francesco Di Maddaloni, Dr. Jing Xu, and myself. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Francesco Di Maddaloni to start his presentation. Francesco, please.
Okay, hello, good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here, and thank you so much, Sina, for the invitation. So let's start sharing the screen and see if technology works. We tested before, it should be fine, but let's give it a go now. Here you are. Can you see my presentation in front of you? Can you see it?
Yes, we can, Francesco.
Okay, perfect. So, Sina, I don't know, should I start now? Because I got only one screen, so I'm in Italy,
Yeah,
not in
please,
London.
go ahead.
So I
We
cannot
are
see.
recording the event and
Absolutely.
people will be able to watch it later on.
Absolutely. So I'm not able to see the audience in front of me. So if you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask in the end of my presentation, which should be really, really short, right? If I'm right, 15 minutes. When Sina invited me to have this webinar, I was thinking about, okay, how should I, explain my teaching, the methods I use. And then I said, well, let's stop a little bit and see how project management is actually perceived as a teacher and researcher. UCL is research-based teaching university, which means that we bring research into the class in order to deliver a lecture. So there basically creates a little bit or different perception of what the idea of teaching will be. Just a brief introduction about myself. I am an associate professor in project studies, the same university of Sina, at Bartlett School of Sustainable Construction. My MBA and PhD focused on stakeholder management in the context of large infrastructure projects. This is the context, research context that I try to explore and also bring into the classroom. I am the co-editor-in-chief for one of the 4 leading project management journals, which in this case is Managing Project in Business. And also I'm sitting in the international editorial board for the other 2, which is the International Journal Project Management, Project Leadership and Society. Got several academic publications, chapter research grants, but what I wanted to talk to you today is about teaching. Which kind of methods do we use? How do we use it? Why we use it? And what is the perception about teaching? I start this presentation about asking some fundamental question as a teacher and researcher. First of all, is the kind of dualism. Should we focus mainly on the challenges of teaching project management, or actually reflect upon the project management challenges as a discipline? I'm going to unfold these 2 kind of perspective very, very soon in the presentation, but basically teaching project management is not easy. And also project management as a discipline is pretty much complex. I'm going to explain you why. Also, what makes a good teaching? Should we actually focus on this question, or actually how my audience, students perceive it, which is actually a dyadic kind of interconnection. What impact am I make in class, for whom? This is something that needs to be really clear since the beginning, before you develop any method or methodology in the teaching and learning environment. So what I really believe is that, of course, as a project management academic and teacher. I really believe that projects are increasingly important in our society. This is really well known. We are going towards a projectification of society, and projects are put now at the forefront for achieving sustainable goals. However, there are many issues around that. From a practical perspective, we have a narrative from Ben Fluberg that project managers are not actually capable to deliver project on the specific parameters of time, cost, benefit, and scope of quality, and then also academic issue on publishing good piece of research. Indeed, project management research has evolved in the last 50 years, and my question is, did the teaching also follow the same trend? Does the teaching evolved by in the last years? And when we see how many courses or modules are taught in project management, I was quite surprised. And come from Italy, and we don't have entire programs teaching project management. So still a very, very young discipline in academia, even though in the last 50 years in research, we have seen lots of progresses. And this is what makes kind of very interesting how project management research can inform our teaching against how actually project management is brought into class. So this enormous potential that is actually not exploited, at least from my perspective. I'm going to explain why this might be the case. Well, when I see and go into classes and through the years, I've noticed that there is an over-reliance of few seminal work in project management, which mainly are back in the 90s or early 2000. So mainly the references of work that we bring into classes are outdated. So there is little of fresh research going into class. At least this is from my perspective. This is also because project management and project are practitioner focused by history, or because we struggle to make theoretical relevant for practitioners. This is something that we need to reflect. Relevant for whom? When we go into classes, what we are going to teach should be relevant. But we also forget to ask the question, relevant for whom? And this is a kind of dilemma that goes behind project management suffering, from practitioner against academic dualism. So a solid bridge is also missing between practice and theory. And this is in class, of course, creates kind of challenges in the way that we propose and teach project management. So too often we see that project management has been considered too technical or too descriptive or too theoretical. So what is here the balance and approach that each teacher should bring into the class? There are studies that talk about the art of managing projects, a very practitioner-oriented way of talking about project management. And on the other hand, we have recent studies that highlight how project management can be theoretically rich. And also this theoretical insight should be brought into the classroom. However, historically, being heavily engineering and process-oriented, project management suffers a kind of an identity crisis when it moved in the last 20 years towards more social science and behavioral system or project people. So if I'm going to ask in a classroom, how do my students perceive project management? I'm gonna give them actually a black and white option. Do you believe project management is engineering, or do you believe it's a social science? You will see that there is a mixed feeling on that. And this does not help the discipline, does not help to give clarity of what we teach. And this is something that needs to be, of course, mitigated into the classroom. This is the academic language that we use, which basically is based on the evolution of behavioral science. Yeah, we have classical theory, behavioral economics, behavioral science, cultural evolutionary behavioral science, so many different perspectives that we actually try to bring into the class. And then in practice, yeah, you have another language, yeah, the language of professional body like PMBOK, APM, APMA, yeah, that use different terminology. So how do we stand? This is the difficulties that we have in project management to develop a common language and knowledge. This is something really interesting. So what does it take to make relevant research-based teaching for a relevant field? This is kind of challenges that we need to ask. Too often, project management has been seen as a bucket to throw everything inside. As we know, yeah, the management of project required not only engineering process focus discipline, but also the understanding of people and the social context within which project operates. But interdisciplinary, yeah, is maybe really powerful, at the same time very difficult to implement. And we know that project management, yeah, is an interdisciplinary area. So do it well. Of course, requires the teacher, the student, and of course the researcher to engage with other domains. And can be very excited, so thinking out of the box, but also challenging, losing focus in the way that we teach, we do research, or we perceive as an audience, as a student, what the message should be. Of course, again, bridging different tradition and theoretical perspective is a challenging but of course rewarding thing. And this is the duty of the person, yeah, the teacher that goes into the class to be able, yeah, to bridge different tradition, theoretical perspective, make practical, yeah, practical example that leads the student towards the right direction. Where your contribution stand, establish a clear boundaries condition may be really, really difficult when we talk about project management as a discipline. So what kind of boundary condition we set into the classroom is extremely important. The same old question, how to provide sound theoretical and practical contribution, not only in the way that we do research, but also in the way that we teach. Yeah, we should transfer knowledge to our audience, how we actually provide contribution to the audience in the way that they understand the theoretical underpinning that inform practice. For whom are you teaching for? And this is something that we forget sometimes. We have our own idea of the discipline, we know our content, we go into the class, and we run a solo, yeah, show that should not be like that, because you need to understand for whom are you teaching for, making a real impact through research-informed teaching rather than teaching for yourself. This is one of the challenges that I have faced through the years. I can recognize, yeah, through the time. Some tips before I'm going to finish my presentation. Let me double check the time. I think I got like 5 minutes, which is more than enough to say, understand your audience. Yeah, to whom are you talking and why it would be relevant for them. This is extremely important. We set into programs. We already know what kind of aim we have, yeah, in the program, but we don't really understand our audience, why they're sitting in that specific program, for whom, yeah, we should actually run the show or teaching, and how can be relevant for them. Sometimes we miss the social, yeah, understanding of the classroom. And this is extremely important. Another tips, of course, engage with your audience. Know the latest literature and content by heart, so you cannot go into the class not being prepared, but make it simple. Yeah, don't overcomplicate. An example that I can give you, I explain earned value management by giving them an example of how to paint 3 walls. Yeah, so make it simple. Project management can be overcomplicated for the interdisciplinary challenge that I just mentioned before. Make it simple. Try to understand, exactly what the literature say about the content that you bring into the class, bring into the latest research, know it, make it simple, and do not overcomplicate. Position your teaching around a clear theoretical debate. This is what I actually do. There are so many different streams of theory that we can bring into the class. I tend to focus on just a few and try to encourage my students to understand and challenge those theoretical assumptions through practical example. Be creative, explore new methods, as this can offer a better way to explain your content. There are another reliance of bringing to the class case studies. Case studies are good, but there are other methods that are equally really interesting and probably better suited to explain the content that and the message that you are trying to bring into the classroom. Something that is really important, at least from my perspective, is to maintain a strong control of the class. Be confident, composed, be always fair, but sometimes you need to break the ice into the class. Be relaxed when appropriate. Try to build confidence, in the classroom. Some students are more keen to talk. Some students are really shy or culturally not willing to talk into the class. You can realize that when there is a break. There is a coffee break, and people and students come into that specific window to ask you question. I always say, why didn't you ask the question when you had the opportunity? So culturally, there are differences that you need to recognize. So maintain strong control of the class is extremely important. Be confident, but also, be relaxed when appropriate. Think about your audience learning journey. It needs to feel real, okay? And what do I mean about that? Learning is a journey, and students will be with you for a specific amount of time. It needs to feel that the students is considered, that the problem they try to solve is real and actually is worthy to be into the class. Wake up at 9 o'clock and sit on time to listen to what you have to say. So it's not teaching for yourself, but actually ask yourself whether your teaching will make a concrete impact in practice. Will it help your audience, in this case your students, to see things differently, to make them curious, and hopefully contribute to improve society? This is the question that I always ask. So no teaching is perfect. This is probably the last of my tips. Good teaching, from my perspective, is that kind that both you as a teacher and your audience will enjoy in the end. This is actually my last slide. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, dear Francesco, for your very interesting presentation and indeed useful tips. At the end, we will take the questions at the end. So I'm gonna go as the next one and give my presentation. Just a moment. So Francesco, in his presentation, talked about different things, and in the tips part, one of the tips was about engagement. And in my presentation, I'm going to speak about the engagement issue, which is very important and critical and also essential in deep learning of students in lectures, which are still a big part of our delivery plans in undergraduate and postgraduate levels for the modules. So I introduced myself in the beginning of the webinar. I'm doing that again briefly. I'm Sina Moradi, lecturer in project management at the Bartlett School of Sustainable Construction. And in this presentation, I'm going to share with you the challenge that I faced and then the solution that I developed for realizing continuous engagement of students in lectures through interactive teaching. So as you may have seen and as you may have experienced, the engagement of students has been always a big issue and sometimes a big challenge. For different reasons, sometimes they are basically tired, depending on the time of the lecture. Sometimes they are low in terms of their cognitive resources. Sometimes they are distracted by several sources, including all these technologies, smart phones, and etc. So altogether, the many reasons bring this inadequate and insufficient engagement of students, which in turn results in their inability to learn deeply and to get involved in what is going on during a lecture. Talking about engagement, it is good to focus what is behind engagement. So attention and concentration are two aspects that basically result in our engagement in about anything. And this attention and concentration are not easy things to do because, as I mentioned earlier, we are unfortunately nowadays getting easily distracted by many, many notifications we receive, or basically our thoughts going in different directions while we are trying to focus on something. So in terms of the process through which we try to be attentive and we try to concentrate, we can mention 3 steps here. The first one is alerting, through which we try and we start trying to concentrate. The next step in this process is orienting, in which we basically prioritize the focal point. We prioritize the thing that we want to focus on. And then in the third step, which is the executive control, we try to avoid any kind of distraction and maintain our focus. The third step is the one that is mostly related and applies to the teaching context in the classroom, in the lecture, where the students already know where and to what they should focus on. But then comes the distractions and the problem of maintaining focus. So how to find the solution? In term 1 of the current academic year, when I was teaching in undergraduate module, it came to my attention several times that students, sometimes half of them, sometimes most, majority of them, they are not as engaged as they should be, especially in the afternoon classes, for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. After thinking a lot, I thought it could be a good idea in order to find the solution, to take off my teacher hat and put on the student hat, which I used to wear. By reflecting on my own experience of being a student and my expectations regarding what I expected from my own teachers, in what conditions I imagined would trigger my engagement. So this kind of thinking and reflection helped me to look into the engagement issue in an, I would say, ontological manner, which proved to be very effective, as you will see why in the following slides. So this reflection resulted in an interesting question and answer in my mind, asking some questions with the teacher while wearing the teacher hat and then answering them while wearing the student hat. So I started this QA with this question: how to keep students engaged in lectures? The first and very preliminary answer was by keeping them focused. Okay, how can I keep them focused? Then the answer was by involving them in the lecture. How to involve them in the lecture? By shortening their listening time, which is probably one of the main sources that students get quite bored and distracted during the lectures. How to shorten their listening time? By asking for their input. How to ask for their input? By asking them recap questions regularly. How to ask recap questions? By asking them to summarize the key points based on their understanding and then to give an example. This is even more important in the project management field, which has a practical nature. So it helps students with their deep learning. And finally, the last question was what to do next, to ask other students to comment or add anything, and then to correct, confirm, or complete what was explained by the students. So this interesting QA resulted in a solution, which, as you can see, is a 6-step iterative cycle. In the first step, I explain each topic of the lecture in 5 or 10 minutes. Then I give students the time and opportunity to ask questions if they have, and answer their question if they ask. The third step is randomly asking 2 or 3 students, depending on the availability of time, to briefly summarize my explanations and key points based on their understanding. And then I ask the class if someone has a comment or anything to add to those summaries, which is followed in the 5th step by confirming, completing, or correcting the given summaries by the students. And finally, at the 6th step, I ask the same students, which I gave those summaries, to give an example about the topic based on those summaries and their understanding. The solution that I developed featured 4 out of 6 different modes of learning: acquisition, inquiry, discussion, and production, according to the conversational framework. So after developing this solution, I decided to implement it and try it in 2 postgraduate modules. In term 2, first, one of them was procurement and supply chain management module, a postgraduate module in which I was the module leader and also part of the teaching team. There were 150 students in this module, and the delivery involved 10 2-hour lectures and 10 1-hour tutorial sessions for each tutorial group. The other module was strategic quality and project management, again, postgraduate module, 50 students, and the delivery involved 5 3-hour lectures and 5 1-hour tutorial sessions for each tutorial group. Following the utilization of this solution, of course, I collected feedback in different forms. And as you can see, students' opinion was very positive, especially in terms of how engaging was the lectures and in terms of student interaction. I have here a quote from 2 students. So about that method and its impact on their learning. So they were very pleased with the way that I involved them in the lecture and with the way I basically asked them, and they had to focus throughout the lecture on what is being discussed and talked about, not just the first 15 or 20 minutes throughout the lectures, because their listening time was short and there was an iterative teaching style, because of which all the time they had to focus and concentrate, because there was a high chance that I would ask them to summarize what I had just taught them. Well, based on this experience, I have three takeaways here, which are mostly pedagogical. The first one is that it seems that teacher-centered and student-centered teaching and learning methods cannot completely replace each other, because each of them offers unique input and value, but they can be combined in different ways and levels and for different purposes. Interactive lectures, as an example of the above-mentioned combination, involve students and their input in the lecturing process, thereby enabling their continuous engagement and deep learning. Finally, I think that combined use of individual reflection and feedback collection provides a sound basis for effective evaluation and improvement of our teaching on a continuous basis. Okay, this is my presentation, and I hope that it was useful. So now I will ask Jean to give her presentation. Jean, please.
Thank you, Sina. I'm going to share my screen.
Thanks.
You see my screen well?
Not yet. Yes, now we can see.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Jing Xu. I'm an associate professor in enterprise management at the Bartlett School of Sustainable Construction. I'm also the program director for the MSc program, Project and Enterprise Management. That's one of the largest program at UCL and also at our department. So today I'm very glad to share some of my experiences of engaging students through game-based learning. I'm going to explain why I'm quite motivated or enthusiastic about game-based learning and design some educational games and what it is. I'm going to share some of the examples of using games in teaching the management of construction firms. And finally, some tips in case you are interested or motivated by this method as well. So I guess my motivation behind designing game-based learning or design those educational games is kind of more like a personal experiment and exploration in education, in teaching. So I joined UCL and BSSC as a lecturer in 2020. So before that, I was doing pure research-based work. And after joining BSSC, I was assigned with several modules, as any young lecturer would expect it, and two of which I'm very enthusiastic about it, which are about the management of construction companies. So one for undergraduate level, one for postgraduate level. I'm enthusiastic about those modules because that's exactly my research interest. So I put a lot of efforts in designing the lectures and also the tutorial activities as well. As soon after I start my teaching, the first several weeks of the teaching, I realized a major challenge of my teaching, which was to teach those very abstract management concepts to a relatively young cohort. So for undergraduate cohort, of course, those are all young students just out of their A level. And also for my postgraduate cohort, there's a large number of those young students around just got their undergraduate degree, low working experiences or very limited working experiences. So basically my module was to teach those management concepts like strategy or business model, innovation, leadership, organizational behavior, emotional intelligence, those concepts in the context of construction. So without some empirical experiences, it's very hard for students to really get what those concepts are. So they get what it means by words, but really they don't get it. What does that mean in real life? And sometimes I feel the teaching becomes very bored or dry if they don't, because they don't engage with me anymore. So I started to think about how to better engage them, as Sina reflected in his experience. And I found this teaching, the game-based learning teaching method. I thought that might be a good idea to integrate into the curriculum to design some educational games to engage them, and also a good idea to diversify the teaching methods during the 10-week teaching period. Also, I think it's really good to have different teaching methods in the face of a very diverse cohort. So apart from the young cohort, I think the cohorts I am teaching, they also are diversified in terms of the gender, educational background, and so on, and nationalities as well. So different methods might be helpful to engage them as well. So pedagogically, I think there are many research that illustrate the benefits of game-based learning in terms of enhanced engagement, active learning, situated learning, social skills, enable immediate feedback from peers and the tutors, and so on. So I'm not going to expand that, but there are quite a lot of educational research support this teaching method. So what is game-based learning? So again, whether it can be digital or non-digital, is a self-contained system or space designed for the purpose of play. So what means by self-contained system? It means it got to have a process. It got to have a clear goal to reach the process to reach the goal. And the play is basically the activity that allows us to experiment, repeat behaviors without fear of failure, and make a series of possible choices to render that experience meaningful. So game-based learning basically is to use the game as a teaching method that creates game-like or play-like experience to teach concept, theories, distance thinking, design thinking, and so on, and to meet some specific educational goals and outcomes. So game-based learning is also supported by CORP's experiential and learning circle. So basically, ideally, it's to create a period of concrete experience to enable students to engage in the game and its various concepts, and then allow them to have some time to reflect on those concepts learned during the game and any new information they gained and new skills they gained through the game. And then a period of abstract conceptualization where students could begin to create new ideas around the new knowledge, information, and skill gained, which enables them to begin to incorporate those new knowledge and skills in their real life or in their work practices. So I'm going to share you some examples of the games I designed in my modules. The first one I would like to share actually was newly designed this year, and I put into the postgraduate students teaching. So basically, it's designed for postgraduate students to learn essential leadership and teamwork skills through that interactive exercise, which enables them to reflect on relevant organizational behavior theories, concepts including Tuckman's model of team dynamics, leadership styles, and emotional intelligence. So we teach those concepts in the main lectures, and then we use these games to engage them to apply those concepts in the later on to small group tutorials. So that each group involve 6 or 7 students, so 1 leader, 1 observer, and 4 to 5 group members. And of course, each tutorial would have several groups to play the game. So the overall group task is to, as a small group, they need to agree on an order of priority for a list of construction project team characteristics, with the most important ranked first and the least important ranked last. So each member would be, as you can see from the brief, so each member would be allocated or assigned with 2 team characteristics. Later on, they would argue so why they think those are important. So they need to support those characteristics. And then each individual have various different objectives under those group tasks. Like this one member would need to ensure their assigned characteristics are in the top half of the ranking, whereas another member might get this objective to make sure that the group reaches an agreement of those ranking. And then the leader need to ensure they prioritize the list, and also to listen to the members and to choose 2 characteristics they need to support to be ranked in the top half of the final prioritized list. So in this way, to create some conflicts during the discussion. And then we have the observer to be quiet during the discussion, and then to observe the whole process of discussion. And then later on, they would be able to reflect and report back what they observed. So there are different stages of the games. So preparation stage for students to internalize the task, to read those briefs. And then they would have the presentation stage where students present in the small groups. So why they think those characteristics they support are important. And then the leader would lead the discussion of the ranking and produce the final list. And then followed by a reflection phase, which is led by the observer. So observer would be able to report back what they observe in terms of how the team dynamics develop and what leadership style they observed, the body language, emotional intelligence, any group member showed during the discussion. And then a conclusion stage where the tutor step in and to give some feedback to each group's performance. So that's one. Another one, speaking of the observation, so we used to have this, to use a film to teach those organizational behavior. So one classic film I would like to use is 12 Angry Men to teach norms, routines, and emotional intelligence. So we used to play the film actually during the lecture, and then to stop in the middle of the film and to ask students some questions. For example, what the body language they observe and so on. But later, so I replaced the film watching to the stimulation game I just shared with you. As the cohort grows, the number of students grows, so it becomes more and more impossible to engage a large cohort to watch the film and have small group discussion, which is a little bit pity. And another game I would like to share is the role playing. So it's not exactly, strictly speaking, it's not exactly a game. It's integrating role playing into assessment. So it is designed for undergraduate students to learn the management projects from different perspectives within a construction firm. So for example, project team, functional departments, and a senior management. So each group will have 4 to 6 members, and each of them should select or occupy project level roles, such as project manager or planner, QS, and so on, or functional managers like procurement managers, human resources managers, or a senior management role like managing directors, CEOs, and so on. So they need to have a group presentation to evaluate the performance of the assigned project from the firm's perspective and make recommendations on how the firm could have better managed the project, or how the good practices could be applied in other projects. So they have 5 weeks preparation time to gather some information to prepare the presentation, and then 10 minutes presentation followed by 5 minutes immediate feedback from the tutor and the students, and any questions from the peers as well. And then they are assigned with a reflective essay in terms of what they learned, and then write down those recommendations to the firms. The last one is basically a puzzle game designed for undergraduate students to understand different modes of organizational culture and their applications. So we will teach different models of the culture during the lecture, and then ask them to work in pairs to illustrate the organizational culture of a construction firm based on the case material. So they would have handouts with those organizational culture model. So they will also have handouts about a construction firm, so which involves pieces of information about the firm, its culture, from performance report, surveys, focus group discussion. So those material is from academic research. So it's kind of pieces of information from different sources. They need to piece up together those information and then to draw the organizational culture in the handout and then present to their whole cohort. So what the culture they look like, they think, and they need to justify why they think so. So with the evidence, so the pieces of information they gathered to support their result. So if you are also motivated by this methodology, so I have some tips for designing game-based learning. So firstly, you got to be clear about the goals, and make sure the goals are achievable, and you have clear rules like any games, and the outcomes you expected, and any rewards, either physical rewards or some psychological rewards, just congratulations, things like that. But they need to have a clear rule how to win this game, and then appropriate level of challenges. So too easy or too difficult, so students would lose interest very quickly. Should be interactive and have some immediate instant feedback, either from their peer or from the tutor. And you need to create a safe environment for the students to explore, and in which to make mistakes, learn from failures as well. And you could design a game either to be collaborative or to add some competitive elements into that, but not too competitive, in case some students might get involved into the game to win the game instead of learn from the game. And then provide some opportunities for critical thinking and constructing one's own knowledge as well. Some cautions, so there's a risk of superficial learning, especially when the game design prioritizes entertainment over educational content. And it may not appear or effective to all students, so it should be going hand in hand with other teaching methods to support differentiated learning for different learners. And I have to say, it is very time-consuming to design those games. Okay, that's all for my presentation. Thanks for your listening.
Thank you very much, Jing, for your insightful presentation. Now we will take the questions, if any, from our participants. You can either put in chat or just ask your questions from any of us. Yes, Chiara?
Hello.
Hi.
I just have a very generic question. First of all, thank you all for the very interesting insights. I just have a very wide question. And in your experience, what's the most common misconception students have about project management in construction, and how would you suggest to overcome it during lecture and teaching methods?
Francesco, Jing, if you have.
Yeah, I can go. So from my experience, thank you very much for your question. Very interesting. Misconception, it really depends on the background of the student. Sometimes we have a very large classroom which present different backgrounds. So they have their own understanding of what they perceive to be, the project management in construction. Some of them are really engineering focused, input output, nothing in between. So, and sometimes I try to let them see things differently. Some of them come from architecture, so they're a bit more creative, but still, within framework and kind of process oriented. Some of them are more management, so they can see the social science behind the discipline. So to me, the most challenging part is to level the classroom at the same kind of understanding of what project management is. Construction is a context. To me, construction is just a context within which project management as a discipline will be applied. Before putting a discipline within a context, you need to have a basic understanding of the discipline. And sometimes there is not a common understanding of what project management really is. And this is something that links back to my presentation before, right? There are so many disciplines within one, which is project management. So how do you mitigate different perception? How do you leverage the class at the same level in order to have a common ground for then moving the discipline within the construction industry? So this is the challenging part to me, understanding the difference within the class then put into a context, which project management really fits.
And I think for me, I think every year I have students that cohort ask me, what is the best strategy for construction firm? What is the best business model that enable the construction firm to be profitable? And also over concern or overemphasize what's the consequences of any strategy or business model for the cost of the project. So that is a challenge or question I have every year from the cohort. So every year I always emphasize that there's no best strategy or no best business model for any firm or any organization or any project. There is only relatively better options in a certain context. So the way I teach them is to ask them why you think this is the good or best strategy. You think so? In which context? And how about this? How about you think, if you think this is the best strategy for the firm, how about this firm is trying to move on to a new market from the infrastructure to the housing? Does this strategy still stay on? And how about the company think about innovate to use some modern methods of construction, for example? What's the implication to the current business model, which is overemphasize cost and budget? So what do they need to do? So always challenging their thinking to try to switch their thoughts that there is a best or there's a right answer to everything.
Thank you very much, Jean. Any other question? Okay, I guess there is no other question, and I want to Thanks again our speakers, my dear colleagues, Jean and Francesco, for their time today, and our participants for taking time and participating in this webinar. Thank you very much all, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.